First, I wanted to, well, celebrate something which is really the Pulver order, which we might have in passing mentioned today. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you something about yourself. Because your biography is, well, it's a lot of things you've been doing. Maybe you can help me to identify yourself. Because among the other things, Jeff, you've been the founder of Vonage, an early investor in Twitter, an early investor in Forceberry. You also seem to have changed the industry that we actually currently live in as well, as a side project.
It happens.
It happens. And you're also a very keen jazz fan. So player as well? Kind of thing. So who are you, Jeff?
I'm somebody who cares. And the one thing I learned is that anyone can make a difference, and that the power of one is much more powerful than the power of none. And that if you have a passion and you truly believe in what you want to do, anything and everything becomes possible. And how many people here are familiar with what the Pulver order is? Well, different question. In the last 20 years, how many people here who've used things like WhatsApp and Messenger and FaceTime, I don't know, Zoom if you're a consumer, or for that matter, Teams, how many of you have actually paid for that service? Well, that's the business side. That doesn't count. For everyone else, you're welcome. That's what I did. In 2003, as a client of Glenn Richards, I had a dream, and the long and short of it is Glenn never told me it wasn't possible. Oh, I had a dream or a nightmare that I came back from the future, and that I wanted to protect the future of broadband innovation. And I asked Glenn a very simple question: is it possible to go to the FCC and ask for regulatory clarity that voice communication that originates on broadband is not regulated as telecom? And Glenn said, sure, we could file it, but we could write this up. And thanks to Glenn and his team, who tolerated me, and we went back and forth for a few weeks with all this legalese. I had no idea what I was looking at, but I just pretended it was okay. We sent it in, and there was a nice, fun story behind it, but at the end of the day, on February 12, 2004, at the FCC meeting, it was passed. And that passing of the Pulver order has had a profound effect on the entire voice over IP industry, for any one of you involved in communications as a service, because the chairman of the FCC never looked, he was the first person publicly in his position to discern that if something quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's not necessarily a duck. And that when he came forward and suggested that communications via internet was just distinctively different than wireline, he never did that the packet inspection to figure out this is a music packet, this is a messaging packet, this is a voice packet. He just came forward and said it's different, and he protected it. Now, there are some consequences from that, but at the end of the day, the voice over IP industry more or less dominates the $2 trillion communications industry. So for all of you who are doing well in it, again, you're welcome. Because if you think about it, if any of your friends and relatives do data services, do data hosting, and have large data centers, they're welcome too, because it was that one event that triggered a future which I never saw coming. But the message behind all that is every one of you in this room, your kids, if any of you have a passion to do something, don't talk about it, do something about it. I mean, for me, life is about intention and purpose. When you understand who you are and what you're here to do, at whatever level that means, do it. So yes, I do astrophotography. It's true. I've been fortunate in my life to invest in over 440 startups. I've done that. I did start a company totally by accident in Vonage was the Minutes Exchange was in 1998. And we were going to be an exchange for VoIP providers, because back in '98 at the VON conferences, people came with their maps, their network maps, and they wanted to trade minutes. And in the year 2000, when all these B2B exchanges were going public, I got very bored. I got very left out. So I asked a friend of a friend, and we find someone who would invest money in the company. And I showed him Free World Dial-Up at the same time. Free World Dial-Up, in fact, had about 1 million users, just end-to-end IP. No one understood why we didn't want to talk to the phone network. But I saw great value 20 plus years ago in providing people-to-people communications. But Jeff Citron, who saw what we were doing with Vonage, saw what we were doing with the Minutes Exchange, decided, okay, forget about Minix. He wanted to be in a business that would not be a multi-million-dollar business, a multi-billion-dollar business. So I ran the Vaughn conferences, and Vaughn stood for Voice on the Net and Video on the Net, so he just borrowed the name. And in 2001, the Minutes Exchange changed its name to Vonage to the Age of Voice on the Net. It went public in 2006. What I didn't see coming was in November of 21, during the pandemic, Ericsson coming in and buying it for $6.2 billion, mostly for probably APIs. Like, wow. So I was stunned by that. But the bottom line is, right? If you could just appreciate that every moment matters, right? That one of the biggest lessons my dad attempted to teach me while he was alive, which unfortunately I had to learn after he passed, is that worrying is a waste of time. That if you learn to let go of the things you can't control, and you just focus on what you can control, you're in your power. Understand the past has happened. Don't lament in it. But the moment, and the future is not guaranteed. But if you could focus on where you're at, you have superpowers. And from that stage, you could do anything. And I like to think that the accomplishments I've been able to do has come from learning from that. And so in terms of messaging, I can tell you fun stories about going to the government. For everyone who's had a bad experience, I had an enchanted experience. I had an enchanted experience going to Congress. There's actually a case study at Stanford Business School about the Pulver order that came out back in November 2004. And I have to thank Glenn. Could we give Glenn Richards an applause here, please? Because the order might bear my name, but it was inspired by Glenn and his team. And back in this is March. So in February, we were at the National Press Club, and Glenn, we celebrated the 20th anniversary on February 12th. It only took 20 years for me to find out why this is called the Pulver order, because actually Free World Dial-Up, which was the company which I was running, which had the 1 million customers for end-to-end IP, I was chairman of that company. That's what we filed. And it took all this time to find out the reason they called it the Pulver order is because I went there by myself as an individual. The FCC at that point anyway was used to large companies, trade associations, and others going there, knocking on their door and asking for something. They also kind of said in a passing that Free World Dial-Up or FWD didn't really roll off the tongue. But every time we went to the FCC, it was Pulver this, Pulver that, Pulver this. And so they named it after me. And it was on February 12, 2004, when Chairman Michael Powell mentioned my last name about 80 times during his talking, because we were part of the February meeting. I realized he wasn't talking about me anymore. He was talking about the order, and somehow I became a subject noun in Washington. And so, all of you could be subject nouns too, for good or for bad reasons, depending upon what you want to do. But really, if I've been sitting here listening to you all talk about things to do, the government is not your enemy, it may not be your best friend. If you have an idea worth sharing, share it. If you see something is wrong, speak up about it. It doesn't take a lifetime to make change. I mean, my superpower is I'm freaking clueless. So it's a good thing Glenn never told me that it's impossible to go to Washington and in 1 year's time end up with an order in your name. He never told me how difficult it was. Can I tell them that the day we filed, I asked Glenn, when is the fighting going to begin? He kind of told me more or less, Jeff, if you hear Martian signals in your ears, you can file a petition at the FCC, but it doesn't mean they're going to act on it. But that didn't scare me. And I just hope that you have the courage to innovate and to stand up and do stuff, because I would like to think there'd be other people besides me standing up for what they believe in and following the process, because you could find opportunities, but more importantly, maybe you find your voice. And I really do hope there are people here who have benefited over the last 20 years for this Pulver order, because for me, it's a story which I'm happy to share and talk about. But more importantly, it's not so much what I did for me, but if you think about the pandemic, and everyone who worked from home, studied from home, stayed at home, if they had to pay money every time they did a video session, I mean, yeah, sure, Zoom became a household name even though it was around for 10 years, but if everyone had to pay commercial money every time around the world would have been a different place. So it's easy for me now to tell you how powerful it was, but I do think it's a story worth telling. And I do think you just never know, my life has been about serendipity and synchronicity. And about matching these things up. And I just am someone who will encourage you to make a difference, because you never know, the person standing next to you could be very well someone who could change the world.
Well, as a matter of fact, I think the Pulver order is a story worth celebrating. That's why we're here. but I think Jeff Pulver is a person worth celebrating, and that's why we're here. Could you please help me and say a big
Thank you.
And he's a kind guy as well. You've seen him. He's going to be with us. So kind, actually. Can I say that as well?
Oh, sure. So after sitting here and listening to you guys talk, for those of you, I don't know if anyone here has ever attended the Vaughn conferences. Anyone here ever attended Vaughn before? Some of you. So I thought it would be kind of cool. I have an event. Last year, I was binge watching Criminal Minds Evolution, and I was at PTC in Honolulu in 2023, and I ran into Bob Pepper, who used to be at the FCC, and he said that I should bring Vaughn back. I couldn't figure out the name of it, so I decided to call it Vaughn Evolution. And so the next edition of it is going to be on April 10th and 11th in Silicon Valley, and if you're an MEF member, you get to attend as my guest.
I stress have you come to talk to me.
We have
and only for members.
I don't have as many seats as there are MEF members. However, you're invited to come and enjoy the world that I'm now living in, which is looking at the intersection of messaging. By the way, is very much embedded in all of that. But I'm looking at the intersection of communications, AI, 6G, and blockchain to figure out what's next, and really to explore what people can do together. Because if we all always stay in our aisles, we don't have the opportunity to cross-connect. And I think an interdisciplinary viewpoint is something which helps move the future forward. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you again. So thanks, Jeff. We'll want to see you soon. April the 10th and 11th, I think, is the day. Come and talk to me for the ticket. Can we say it one more time?
Thank you.